Welcome everyone to another discussion live stream here on our YouTube channel. And I made a couple of videos over the last years, microkernel and ideas, and from 20 years of experience how stuff could be better. And over the last year, the more I got back into doing Linux stuff with the T2 distribution that I'm running based on Rock Linux for over 20 years now, it's getting increasingly frustrating, right? So last night or yesterday we did some PS3 refreshing and show PS3 in PowerPC, maybe both not a primary release architecture in the Linux kernel, but regressions. This is so depressive that in 2020 the Linux kernel people randomly change stuff and constantly break shit. What are the regressions there on the more main channel? Here with this Precious, we can also, it is off right now, I can also plug it out and hold it into the camera. Here Precious PS3, right? And there is no good reason. Of course, some Linux fans like, yes, random changes that barely have an effect, if at all, and usually more negative one. So what is broken now? You boot PowerPC stuff on the PS3. And also, yeah, after I put so much work into this, right, cross-compiling Firefox, working on the graphic stuff and so on, in each freaking major Linux kernel something is broken. What is broken now? So you boot, you get some oops that does not appear to have a major effect, but there is an oops of PS3 storage. Then Ethernet doesn't work for whatever, interrupt, whatever, and then certainly without Ethernet only half the fun. And then when you shut down, it doesn't shut down, it oopses on shutdown in the Ethernet, it doesn't work off the previous video. And so I'm getting sick and tired of fixing all the regressions of the previous video, QLogic, fiber channel stuff, on Sun stuff and all the other fun. So basically, long story short, for 20 years I can't fix alone as fast as the Linux kernel breaks the stuff, aside other stuff like deleting architectures that are not Linus Torvalds' favorite, and also good old-fashioned stuff that would be fun, like 386, like, yeah, it's too difficult to maintain, let's delete it, must be 1,000 lines of code, but yeah, easier to maintain and then to break. 386 original stuff deleted, yes, it's not super relevant today, but nice to have anyway, isn't it? And also early Spark stuff, yes, it's not super relevant today, but it's deleted, right? And other stuff. So what I really wonder, and I would like to brainstorm and need some help. I had this idea, so this website kernel.com, how long do I have this yet? So probably registered 2012, spend some money on this amazing domain kernel.com, because small little microkernel. Not done that much with that except brainstorming and stuff, but I have to say, after 20 years on Linux and not seeing too many alternatives, yes, there are alternatives, the BSDs, Haiku, ReduxOS and Fuchsia, and maybe, I said this before, previous video some week ago, commercial viability of creating your own kernel, there is not so much. So theoretically we could join forces with Haiku or Fuchsia. The BSDs are too old-fashioned code for me. I said this before, with all the IT security stuff, random pointer stuff and string handling, and yeah, off by one and more. And also, how bad is this in the Linux kernel? It's really bad. Also, drop frames. Quite. If you just, in my opinion, look into this as the Linux kernel, so this is just latest, right? I can't make this shit up. I wish I would make this shit up, but this is 2020 and 30 years of super professional, the brightest of the industry at Red Hat and SUSE and stuff. It's like, yeah, what is this? This is a minor kernel update release stuff of, oh, by the way, we broke there's some Intel HDA codec stuff, move on usable label to correct positions, like, yeah. And nobody tested this before, right? This is a testing release engineering quality assurance of the Linux kernel in 2020. I wish I would make this up. And this is after, usually we have this in usually we have this only like once, like this slip up of, oh, by the way, we broke here something. Yeah. So in my opinion, first of all, the stable release series, first of all, in my opinion, after 30 years, this code should be so amazing that they don't constantly break it. And second of all, even if they constantly break it because we need to refactor the code because after 30 years we still couldn't make up our mind with APIs and ABIs and function naming and stuff, then at least the minor patch series should not constantly break this shit. But this is exactly what they're doing here, right? Minor patches, they should only fix stuff, but you see they break here most of also 594, this small updates, right? 2020 594, it's like, yeah, X copy MC, like motivation, rework, mem copy, MC save, a benefit of doing slow and careful copies, obviated on newer CPUs, something discussed with Linus made clear that current suffix is imprecise, twofold, and it's like, yeah, 2020, by the way, we fucked up. We need to reverse and we need to majorly. Anyway, my point is, in my opinion, also not only as seen at this major, how is it called, bloopers, or what is it in Hollywood movies? Anyway, this slip up stuff. But even if you look not only at this, oh, by the way, we've effed up seriously. In my opinion, it is also, I basically can open each of those change logs and it's like, yeah, fix DMA boundary mask of ATA bounds. This is also, in my opinion, a recurring theme why I want some bloopers. Yeah, did I say this mostly correct? I hope. Yeah, gag reel, I meant bloopers. Did I say bloopers? I hope I said this mostly correctly. But in my opinion, so for a new kernel, when we write the kernel, of course, when we write a microkernel from scratch, it will be full of bugs. Maybe we base on L4, maybe we share some stuff to speed this up and share some others people work. But out of bounds, yeah, also this is memory allocation, right? 30 years of, where somewhere I searched over, this is not, oh no, this maybe this, anyway. Boundary conditions before expression in net filter and TNF tables offload stuff. It's basically you only need to open each fuse fixed page dereference after free. Basically just open my hobby here, recurring theme. Basically I could, maybe my YouTube channel would be more successful of having a each day night show of let's just look at the freaking changelog and it's set how buggy it is. How could we fix this? First of all, not running everything in one address space or nearly one address space of non-uniform, potentially multiple address spaces on super large non-uniform memory machines, but otherwise mostly in one single address space where every nice driver can clobber each other. And if the joystick driver or keyboard driver crashes, then most likely your whole system goes with it. And anyway, I outlined all the ideas in previous videos. But what I wanted today, not to digress and talk only about technical stuff, as seen in previous videos, I have plenty of ideas. And sure, there was also, is this fantasizing impossible stuff? No, we have seen QNX has proven there are, which nowadays it's not sure if it's still owned by the BlackBerry or Harman company, maybe. The problem also with this kind of commercial stuff, you can barely use it. So it's a theoretically nice operating system that, yeah, you cannot get too much. Fun fact, my BMW Mini navigation system is running this. So maybe I just don't want to disassemble my car. But some update reveals here, some Mini Connect update stuff. I dissected this a little bit. Unfortunately, yeah, car updates. I only got one freaking update ever in my car, 8-year-old. I own my car for 8 years because I use it until it probably falls apart or something. But yeah, fun fact, some BMW and Mini navigation stuff is running QNX. I'm somewhat tempted to play around with this, just don't want to break my car, so maybe I should get this navigation system used on eBay or something for some fun hacking in case you were QNX lib off, shared object stuff off. Actually, I wonder, was this, I'm not sure, was this 386 or was this ARM? I don't recall. x86. Anyway, we digress. My point today is I really miss the days where if you write something amazing, so imagine we sit down here like day and night and basically switch from writing, don't delay, try the most amazing reverse engineered scan software stuff today. If we basically switch to writing an world's best operating system, because certainly Windows and Mac OS also full with hashtag peak bugs, I really miss the days of the 80s and 90s where if you write some amazing piece of software, be it operating system or otherwise, you can actually earn a living. Because I founded the company Exacode for embedded Linux stuff, and it was next to impossible to earn money with. This is also why, if you ask why do I have a domain and want it for like since 2012, do this because I'm certainly very much aware that it's extremely difficult to earn money with that. And this is also the point of this video. I'm looking for your input because so the issue is, what is the issue? So first of all, sure, there are alternatives. Stuff need to be either twice as good or twice as cheap, or so is the saying often for people to switch to something. The problem is with all the free open source stuff, it's like half the price of free. It's like, yeah, so even if it's like twice as good, it's like, yeah, still free or something. And I sure learned the hard lesson that you can't base your life, your company, your living on a lot of this open source stuff, especially. So how do people make money with open source? Usually the big companies like doing financial software or otherwise, they usually just use open source, right? So I made in my experience, but correct me if I'm wrong and post your comments there, the companies who do the low-level work of image libraries, Python libraries, database stuff, or even look at Qt potentially maybe not the most successful, and even Qt discussing with their commercial licensing and free open source users don't like loving it. So the problems are everywhere in terms of earning a fair living. And me and my company, who, for example, even Exact Image, right? This image, like more modern C++ alternative to ImageMagick, that we also use in our products, but we had only one small customer initially funding this a little bit with some thousands of euros. So with Exact Image, how much did we ever earn? Maybe 10,000 euro in total, which is not even a couple of months worth of salary. And so yeah, even there, fun fact, so this is that, maybe open source, let's see where our are not found. Amazing stuff. Maybe I should also modernize here some stuff. But so Exact Image, the problem is that, maybe we have it here. The problem is if it works, nobody pays for it. And to fund, like if you need something, ImageMagick is there and you can use it even though it's 10 times slower than it should be or something. And this is also the problem I had with T2, right? I was joking so often, like embedded customers, they're like, it doesn't boot on some, they saw some cheap garbage x86 board from Taiwan and it doesn't boot because some strange BIOS bugs. And then I should sit here and debug strange BIOS bugs for customers back in the day. It's like, why should we pay a European salary for solving some boot problems? Your shit Linux just needs to freaking boot. It's like, hey, excuse me, it boots on everything I have here. It's not our fault that you source the cheapest garbage board from Taiwan there that has a garbage BIOS. I think it was Inside H2 or whatever that was, this garbage Inside BIOSes. And so, yeah. And at the end of the day, maybe they paid in 2 hours because they, or whatever, or 4, but usually it's like, yeah, you sit the whole day of debugging, disassembling, and so on. It's like, yeah, nobody usually pays you the 8 hours of that fun. But so just to give you some background of, yeah, I had this experience. So the real problem is, of course, if you if I now sit here for years and write an amazing kernel, and maybe I should just copy and paste Haiku and Fuchsia stuff, or just use Fuchsia and rename it, so in the sake of like Ubuntu and Red Hat, and it's like, yeah, just take Fuchsia and name it. Hey, it's our stuff, and that's like YOLO, whatever. Don't look there too closely. And anyway, but if we write really new stuff, like multi-server stuff, like Sync Herd, just in 20 years newer and actually working, and support for PowerPC or RISC-V and so on, and Herd probably never gets. How should we make money with this? And at the end of the day, as you see from 20 years doing hobby stuff and trying to fix stuff and keep stuff working, certainly not the most greedy person here in the open source world, and in general world, where is even here, certainly not the most greedy person, but at the end of the day, I have some running costs like rent and heating and food and internet, and sometimes buying some hardware, right, for development and testing. And so yeah, wife and baby also wants to eat something and stuff and be warm in the winter. And that is a real problem, right? That the whole open source community didn't really solve. We have seen this, even Mozilla struggling there, although they get a fortune from Google, but only from them. And certainly it is amazing that I managed to build here some new audience on YouTube with this YouTube and membership and Patreon, which is certainly amazing. But I really wonder if, as we need to, and people commented already, I think was it Dave, maybe Dave, sorry if I mixed some names, but maybe Dave, or others in the comments, maybe they also have the same challenge of wanting to do open source, but maybe there needs to be some institutes. But the problem, even if there is like some Wikipedia kind of, there's of course the Linux Foundation, but the Linux Foundation mostly distributes some millions to some handful of core people, which in my opinion is not the most fair. If 1,000 of people work as a hobby and makes the Linux kernel what is the Linux kernel, and Linus Torvalds gets most of the money for applying patches, like, nah. And then the problem, of course, with big institutes, getting in contact and like applying and getting approved, and how to deal with 10,000 people doing one-line patches. As seen here in the video, often those one-line patches like fiber channel, QLogic fiber channel stuff on Spark easily takes 8 hours just to get familiar with the code and test and debugging and stuff. And so, yeah, that is, in case you're wondering, talk is cheap, and actually doing this is where all the labor is. And this is an unsolved problem, certainly even more so with looking ahead, stuff being discussed, this universal basic income, and maybe even more jobs lost in the future with automation and stuff. So even outside of open source, difficult times to come, probably, with not only automation, global warming, change of all this stuff, but basic income, maybe some states tried somewhere a little bit with somewhat success, but even initially, I said this before, initially like 5 or 10 years ago, it's like basic income is unfair for all the people who work, and some people get something for free. However, if everyone gets this, I changed my mind also so much to thinking, maybe always encourage you to think and rethink, because after some years I realized, wait a second, this basic income is actually what even affects me with all this open source stuff. So there are many questions for the future, and this basic income stuff may be one part of the puzzle. Not sure how that would work out in a global scheme. But one thing is for sure, in my opinion, this open source stuff needs some rethinking, because what is also the other problem? The other problem is, if we now sit here and do all the development of writing some really nice code, like portable, performant, implementing this for a couple of architectures. If we do this with BSD or MIT or even GPL license, it doesn't even protect us from doing all the hard work, and then like Oracle and IBM coming, oh, this is a nice multi, or even Microsoft, I mean, all of them, right? It's like, oh, this is a nice system. It's much cooler than we currently have of the C garbage code with full of regressions each release. And like using it, right? So no matter if it's BSD or MIT license or GPL, this is also, it's like, yeah, where is the motivation? So the motivation, and this is maybe also why all the code is so C and full with bugs and all the big companies just taking it, because where is the motivation to create something outstanding of much better bug-free quality and release engineering? I mean, basically like release engineering, hey, release it and let the users test it. It's so at Apple's iOS, and it's so certainly it's a Linux kernel community. But yeah, the motivation, there is basically zero motivation to have outstanding open source stuff out there. This is also my experience, right? T2, Linux, and Exact Image. If it's freaking works, nobody gives you money, right? And then if it doesn't work, like my embedded customers, it doesn't boot on my cheap garbage board here, you need to fix it. It's like, yeah, it will be some hours looking into this, right? It's like, what, some hours? How can it take some hours to solve some boot problem? It's like, your shit, embedded Linux needs to work, otherwise we can't use it. It's like, yeah, and then when it works, like, why should we pay for it? It just works. It's like, okay, fine. Anyway, so yeah, I'm looking actually for your input. I don't have a solution for that. This is really sad after 20 years in the industry. I'm not only depressed and burned out from all the open source regressions, also GCC, right? And then we sent this patch, previous video, we sent this patch G5 and cell optimization, optimized for Power 7, or set some Power 7 machine define that then produces code for Power 7 and glibc and others. We send this patch upstream, we sit here this hour, debug it and send a patch, and then the patch is even still not commented. So yeah, even if you do the stuff, then half of the time, or set standard firmware compression so much too, yeah, you want to get some stuff upstream to the Linux kernel, and also no feedback, because who cares about set standard firmware compression. Maybe a fair thing would be to each patch, so probably one solution, what I said earlier, there probably should be some Wikipedia like open source donation thing where the Linux Foundation should distribute the money not only to this high-paid executives who make PowerPoint presentations on a MacBook Air, allegedly, right? So much too. Yeah, there's Linux Foundation Mac presentation. There's this yeah, Linux Foundation president uses Mac OS for presentation, can't make this shit up. It's hilarious, but this is also my experience that some high-profile developers at big Linux distributions actually develop on Mac OS with just secure shell and virtual machines. It's like, yeah, in case you're wondering why the state of desktop Linux is, how the state of desktop Linux is. Anyway, I don't have a solution for this. Also license-wise, so this is of course a problem. Even the license, and then I check the comments. Basically, I don't have an idea how to make this a financial viable endeavor here. I wish I would also think if we wanted to make some more quality, cooler, and also Mac OS, right? It's extremely old tech. Mac OS is mostly next step. The Mach microkernel Visc is not Unix, BSD kind of stuff, just developed. So basically this is 1990s technology of Mach kernel, long time proven of being slow, and L3 and L4 developed exactly for that reason, L3 and L4 microkernel. So super old and low performance technology, and yet they managed to make something out of it, but still hashtag peak bugs at macOS even. But licensing wise, the problem is of course if you make a restrictive license, like think, for example, if we write a lot of code from scratch for a high performance and modern system of multi-server microkernel stuff, of really nice code, then if we don't want other companies, like what Steve Jobs said, right? The controversy of how much Steve Jobs and Apple have stolen there from Xerox PARC. he once said there was this artist copying and stealing, what was it? Good artists copy, great artists steal. So much to Apple and Steve Jobs, in case you were wondering. And so if we want to prevent, if like we sit and so developing a new modern system where stuff freaking works and is more stable and so on, and nicer developments and so on, how should we prevent that artists like Steve Jobs and IBM, Oracle, and all the other, and Nokia and Research in Motion and Volkswagen, BMW, Audi. So you make the most amazing kernel or system, an amazing microkernel, multi-server, graphic stuff, work on all the details, get everything working. And then if it's like open source, like then everyone can just use it. So how to earn money with this, right? And how to prevent artists, like good or great artists, they're of that sort, to steal it, right? And like with Tesla and SpaceX, use Linux and rack in all the profits and the people who did the work. The problem is if you make a restrictive license, usually people are upset and don't like it. So we could theoretically create a license. It's open source, but you are not allowed like to fork it, like a non-fork and not other commercial use license. Certainly that would not be free and open source then by the general definition there of free and open source. But in general, that is a problem, right? If you make it more restrictive to prevent your work and other companies to just run away and steal it like Steve Jobs here, then the community hates it anyway and nobody gonna use it because other stuff is free and BSD licensed. So let's look in the comments. So that's basically, if in case you're wondering, why do I talk so much of this? Everything could be so much better? And it's like, why do we have this old 30-year-old still more regressing and failing than not stuff that is Linux and the BSDs? It's like, other people who can do great things, maybe they don't work on open source, right? It's like, instead of our unsuccessful fixing open source stuff for 20 years without earning money for it, other people found their electric car factory, their space company, and otherwise steal others' people stuff and make money with it. And this is also what is also really annoying, right? When then people say, but make a cloud hosting company or make some other product. This is also really ridiculous, right? That you put all your work in some open source stuff and then you need to double your work with some cloud providing cloud services or other kinds of whatever, just to like double the work, just to make half of some income, or maybe no income because nobody wants your cloud hosting. Or it's like, always the great ideas of people are, why don't you make this and that with it? It's like, instead of just earning money with what you do, having more work, like double the work, to maybe eventually earn some cents. It's like, a fun fact with Exact Image once, and this is, I had some cool opportunities, and some I am really sad that they didn't came through. I mean, besides, I said already, I was once sitting at Apple, but I didn't want to work at Apple because, get the idea. But so once I'm not making this shit up. Once I got an email, I probably still have the email. Usually I still have the email. Once with this Exact Image, Industrial Light and Magic contacted us or me and asked like, hey, can we not have some movie grade features here and there? But unfortunately, they quickly stopped answering the email. This is. I really always wonder, here's Exact Image that I previously, whatever link I previously followed here. It's like, So this is really sad, but this is also the recurring theme. Like finally some big company like Industrial Light and Magic contacts you, it's like, hey, finally we can earn at least some €1,000 with it, doing some custom stuff for Hollywood, high definition, high dynamic range, whatever, image processing. And it's like, yeah, as soon as you can be contract says something of earning some sentence like that, they never answer again like everyone else, in case you were wondering how it works at Industrial Light and Magic. And once also the high-end German audiophile company Burmester contacted us, and it's a decade ago. I probably didn't sign an NDA for their, so this Burmester, if you don't know that, they make this 10, 50, 100,000 euro hi-fi components of audiophile grade stuff, and some car manufacturers have the options. For example, some Porsche, you get, instead of Bose, Burmester as the high-end option in your Porsche or whatever. And so they contacted us decade ago, or longer, maybe 12 years or something, long time ago, for Linux in their multimedia system. So I didn't really follow up on it, but the problem also is we quoted some realistic price. The funny thing is, it all boils down to the companies never want to pay money, even though this is audiophile stuff, right? So this is like, they have components, 100,000 euro, right? Loudspeakers and stuff. And so companies who make the most expensive stuff, you give them a fair quote of, hey, they want some multimedia Linux system stuff for their new AV, or like a decade ago new Zen new multimedia, multi-room streaming, whatever, high-end stuff. And you make a quote of, okay, I certainly can't do this alone. This is a project, so it's me and some external or internal people. You make a quote of this, that, and the other, and you never freaking hear back from them. It's like, what the heck? Does everyone... they want to sell stuff for 100,000 euro a pop, but they can't pay fair salaries for embedded stuff because is it not free or something? I mean, so yeah, I've been there, done that. It's frustrating. Not only the bugs are frustrating, but also most companies and people never want to pay something. And yeah, let's see. So we have quite some comments, probably actually quite some comments. Let's maybe quickly scroll through them. While let's see what we got there. Also, right now maybe I should. This auto ISO. Why is this not auto ISO? But yeah, another sunny day in paradise. So cheers. Some sunshine in the winter. So yeah, hello everyone. So as usual, even if you watch this later, in a week, in a month, in a year, looking forward to hear what you think. The whole situation is, in my opinion, the whole summary, too long didn't watch the whole open source, and making a living with that is crazy. It's not sustainable, and maybe also the reason why a lot of open source stuff quality is a little bit lagging in terms of quality and stuff. Let's see, Marco writes, most probable future-proof personal focus OS is the Huawei thing. So the Huawei Harmony thing, I'm not so sure. The thing is already they didn't publish the sources yet, right? Here is something you is now open source, but you can't get it anywhere, or can you get? Oh, here's OEM source code guide. What? Maybe this is new. What do we have here? 1 month ago. I mean, I regularly checked. I usually didn't find something. Open Harmony Gitty. Oh, this is new. I didn't find this the last time I looked, and that was just 2 weeks ago or something. HPM. So yeah, this is actually full code base version, full high solution. Bundle specific, interesting. That is completely new. What is here? Site gives you code. Harmony OS code 1. Do we also get something here? Let's see what we get here live on this 200. We have 500 Mbit. Let's see what's coming down there with. Yeah, thank you very much. k per second of, or is it speeding up? It's like, yeah. Anyway, this is new. Anyway, this will be interesting. Let's see what this is. This is new. Nero says, my standards are too high, just dumped on mobs level, happiness, yeah, unshakable shadow. And Anthony writes, BlackBerry still owns that, yeah, that's what I thought. What about Fuchsia OS? Yeah, I mentioned Fuchsia OS. The problem is I tried to build it when the stuff already doesn't give me a shell in. It's like, yeah. Maybe I make a dedicated video. I wanted to make a video similar to RedoxOS. Also, there's ReduxOS. In theory, a good idea. We made a video, some implementation details. They have all the message passing by sockets, at least the last time. So imagine all the block I/O going through some slow socket stuff. It's like, yeah, it's impressive that they got some stuff up relatively quickly, but yeah, if everything is off the low performance side and stuff, then yeah, then it's also not the most outstanding. But yeah, also welcome everyone and thanks for joining. Toronto, Andrine, yeah, welcomes everyone to all parts of the world. Marco writes, no reasonable person can switch to Google project for which you have to sign something before being able to contribute. Marco writes, really, Google open source is not supposed to be open. Looking people to help me build a classic NT style multi-person OS email is my YouTube account, writes. So, I mean, I will not, yeah, also now we have some not amazing. What happens now is our download. What happened here? We have 3 Mbit. Yeah, infrastructure. Oh, this is downloading, so whatever. I will not write copy. So what I would want to do, I outline this because it also gets on my nerves. That also seen on the IBM PX cap accelerator. You have console in the terminal, and then you boot Linux, and everything disappears. You don't even know what's going on. What I really would like to do is outlined in my previous videos. I will not recap this in this video. Some nano kernel of platform abstraction. Basically, what would be amazing, what some people tried with Linux and core boot. What I also in general don't appreciate the most is with ARM platforms, you have firmware, then maybe you have firmware, maybe not, then you have U-boot, and you have all the drivers duplicated. So if you want to enable a new platform, you have to write some entry-level dump drivers for U-boot, and then for the Linux kernel, and potentially, depending on your graphics stacks, there are multiple parts of also less than ideal also can be focused. So what I would like to try is like having drivers only once, some nano layer of platform. But the nano layer means nothing more than, to me, nano layer usually means very little abstraction. Don't mix this to that I want to mix a nano kernel with a microkernel. For me, this means a nano kernel as hardware abstraction layer for the to be directly used by the microkernel, so that these are like not two different things, but just a nano kernel as like header defines or whatever language like Rust or whatever, but basically having the microkernel based on one set of portable defines, so that you have a hardware abstraction layer as kind of a nano that is just doing interrupt and other I/O port, DMA and timer abstraction stuff. So what this means is, for example, on MIPS, this is also really silly in my opinion, on MIPS for the SGI stuff, you have for each SGI platform, IP 27, 30, 32 and so on, you need to recompile your kernel. What in my vision or ARM ARM platforms or PowerPC, you have, yes, old-fashioned crap, but you had prep and CHRP, and now Power NV of Power Non-Virtualized. And so for this, in my vision, I wouldn't want to recompile my microkernel so that you have one hardware abstraction layer nano kernel like thing of just in portable ways defining interrupts and other platform services, for example, for Power Prep. Yes, it's old crap, but just as an example. Or for example, x86, this would be one hardware abstraction layer, a little bit like Windows NT, but in open and modern way. x86, like old-fashioned BIOS hardware abstraction layer, and EFI, for example, just not to recompile your microkernel and just using portable interrupt and other DMA and timer services. And theoretically, what I said anyway, to reuse this in other demo, like portable, like I often call this Rosetta kind of stone of having this portable definitions of for drivers of serial ATA and NVMe and so on. But yeah, I basically summarized the other videos. With Fuchsia, so Marco also writes, really Google open source is not supposed to be open. I mean, the funny thing is, I guess I would need to look in the license. I guess it's maybe BSD or MIT. I mean, theoretically, we could try to beat Google at their own game, as in taking Fuchsia, if it's open enough, like not signing everything because we don't freaking contribute to their stuff and make them richer, but just, hey, let's be the great artists and steal Google Fuchsia, which is relatively good, except it didn't work for me, but the sources didn't look the worst. And we could theoretically reverse big company stuff and steal it and rebrand it and make it more amazing and actually freaking work and support it and stuff. So yeah, but basically I wanted to say to Robert's comments there, I'm not going to clone NT style or Mac OS or whatever. I would do something completely from scratch and modern because also yeah, drop frames. Also, by the way, I did run some benchmark because also this, oh wait a second, here. So yeah, how garbage is this internet? 8,000 drop frames, 10%, with 3 Mbit, and I actually run here some speed tests. So do I make this shit up? No, we have 500 Mbit down and we have 50 Mbits up. This is what I got before the live stream of this Vodafone garbage failing. Is like, yeah, you can't live stream in 2020 with this failing garbage DOCSIS cable stuff of Vodafone's. Like, yeah, it starts at 25 Mbit of our 50, and even you see here it then already goes down over just some 20 seconds, and it's like, yeah, you 18 Mbit pseudo whatever, 24 at the beginning, 16 at the end or something. It's like, yeah, this not amazing stuff, in case you were wondering. Marco says, I was actually working with a company that was thinking about using and sponsoring Exacode stuff. The GPU stood in the way. Well, you should have. I never heard about that. Was it T2 or exact image stuff? If it's T2, I mean, T2 is probably GPL2. This is only the build system, right? It doesn't mean you need to publish all your stuff though, but yeah, always ask. I think you didn't ask, you could have contacted and check what it's possible. Anthony writes of working hard, that was funny. It's like, yeah, working hard. But Marco says it was years ago. Yeah, but so this licensing problem, but this is also a real issue, right? As I outlined here in all details in this video, if you do great stuff open source, then people just use it and you barely see a cent. Anthony writes, thinks you hit the nail on the head when was in college in the 20s was about contribute financially and in effort. Now in the mid 30s, open source has not paid the bills. I was able to contribute financially and in effort. Now in mid 30s, open source is not, I think, paid. Need some interpretation of typos there. Open source has not paid. Yeah, and I think Anthony wants to say he's in a similar to us. I mean, yeah, founding a company for embedded Linux that is Exa code and then ending up earning 90% of your money with commercial macOS applications. That is the sad reality. The undoing rights problem lies with the principle not lining up with reality. Placing the means of code production is not the same as placing the means earning in the programmers, whether it is any license. Unconditional basic income makes sense to me as well, writes Marco, but for different reasons make regulations less difficult, goes against bureaucracy and not solution. Automation tech killing jobs. Yeah, also this is, like in Germany, we of course have one of the better social nets and systems in the world. But even in Germany, if you get unemployed and get quite some first unemployment support and later what is some Hartz IV stuff, that is, yeah, I heard and many people complain that if you're long-term unemployed in Germany, even though with this relatively, to international standards, relatively good support, it's a lot of bureaucracy and going there every week or month to the services and discuss and apply for jobs and whatnot. And if everyone, instead of wasting money on all the administration overhead, just give it to everyone, and then those people who are musicians or open source or want to start a business and stuff can do so and try it without any financial or at least less great financial risk. And after thinking about this for some years, I actually came to the conclusion that this certainly is probably better than the current situation. Enough time to get involved. Now can wrap my head around all the fragmentation in the FLOSS community. Yeah, so fragmentation, this is also a good point I said earlier with in the meantime 1042 or so Linux distributions. Like, yeah, why is there not the year of Linux desktop? Yeah, 1042 Linux distributions, yes, including our own. But also this is also, right, I fixed stuff for the P3. What do people do? Can you help me? Like, I get messages, can you help me get this working with Debian? It's like, no, I cannot spend even more time helping you how to program and port this to Debian. It's like, either you want to use my shit or not, but I'm not on top of all of fixing, all of researching, reverse engineering, debugging all this stuff, helping you to get this working in Debian. It's like, there is also a limit of that, but this is also so, people can't use this T2 stuff. No, they desperately need Debian because Debian's like, okay, fine. It's like, good luck with that. But yeah, fragmentation also, yeah, GTK, Qt, Wayland, Xorg, and so on and so on. But certainly with a new, given the state of everything is not super amazing, if we would do everything from scratch, it would of course be also fragmentation, right? Okay, only 7 minutes left of this download from China or something. China with love. I'm really curious what is in there. So OSS, people telling you, yeah, and then you get open source people telling you to earn by support. Yeah, so this is exactly the problem. What I hope I mentioned a little bit, but with like do services, like do some open source stuff and then do services. Like, first of all, other people can do the same services. Also, as I said, double, not only do the open source stuff, but also providing the services, being like with my scanner driver that is on each Linux distribution, the Sane Scanner Access Now Easy Avision driver for, in the open source version, some 200 devices. Probably in total also earned less than 10,000 euro, I guess, with that. Mostly with one company. but yeah, like provide a scan service. It's like, no, I don't want to provide, I don't want to get here 20 scanners and hire people and run here some coffee shop like stuff. I wanted to do code and not provide a copy shop like service just to earn some money with the code I've written there. It's like, or like support and documentation. The problem with support is, as I said, people want working stuff. They don't want to pay. Either it works, then they're happy, or if it doesn't work, they don't want to pay for support and documentation. Similar how to the Blender stuff failed back in the day. It's like, yeah, do a 3D modeling stuff and sell support and documentation. Yeah, this also didn't work out for the Blender folks, in case you are as long as in open source. But long story short, people agree here for the most part, and have similar stories. What is the solution? Somehow, I have the feeling the only solution I have, except basic income and some big foundations like Wikipedia are founding this, but I have the impression big foundations like Wikipedia or Linux Foundation will not work because of administrative overhead, and then the fight of, but I did more and I did something and I can't register and I get nothing and so on. So I don't have the biggest hopes in running big donation foundations like that. The only, for our own stuff, as sad as it is, and it will upset people, the only way out of this is more restrictive licensing of not like open source, but not for other commercial use, or you need like 2 licenses. And this is in a decade, like 10 or 20 years ago, myself in the past would not have liked this and would have freaked out of this. But after 20 years in the industry, I have to say, why not? And this is not even, you want something for free. I don't even find this unfair to be open source. You can take a look at something, but not fork and resell. And if you want to use it commercially, you need to have some like commercial software support licensing contract thing. And why not? Apple has it, Microsoft has it, Oracle has it. And as much as pure open source, pure like previously myself, free and open source, people don't like it. But this is one of the most fair licensing schemes for people who do something to earn a living of this. Otherwise, we are down to what I tried here the last years, starting some Patreon and YouTube membership stuff. But this is similar, doing additional work of providing a fancy YouTube channel on top of the open source work, right? Instead of I just do the work and then it's done, I need to double the work for video entertainment and documentation, which certainly is also fun, but it's more work, right? It's on top of actually doing the code. But yeah, what else do we have here while we wait for? Also, probably if this ever, also is this still loading? Hello, 191, 130. Also, can we start extracting? Probably we can start extracting it, but now the download is not the super fastest, I have to say, from China. If it even are we even still online? 4 Mbit, 8,000, no, it looks like we're online. So yeah, after this live stream, which we end really soon because 15 minutes, we can make another live stream, look into this Huawei Harmony OS thing. Do we have 100 son? It's not loading much anymore. Well, no, we will see. Let's see, what else do we have here? Like, in fairness, idea of taking over the world failed due to poor marketing and even poor license was Plan 9, but run an application or SNOS with its own kernel. And to answer the question, their yes job did rip off Wozniak during the Atari efforts. Was this just a chill dude? I mean, yeah, also, yeah, Microsoft there with, yeah, pure luck and crap software. Yeah. Fabian 97, sorry that I didn't talk about this yet, but have you take a look at Gnode microkernels, the scriptors? someone asked us before, to me this G-Note looks a little bit throwing everything into the kitchen sink and hope something sticks. Like basically it's like everything thrown together in the hope that something works. That does not look like the most useful design. I've not seen anything in production, so if you know if someone uses this, let me know. But what I would want. But the problem is also that each time I look into something, especially also even the user space stuff from Bash to whatever, written in C and often not the most clean and maintainable C code and so on. So we have also, by the way, is this loading or is it not loading of 100 somewhat right now? Not loading much anyway. So NixOS, good examples of why NewOS won't solve the problems. Good start, but they die on the vine because good is not good enough. So the problem is also all the 1042 Linux distributions are all just Linux, right? I made a previous video, did Linux kill all the OS innovation? Because instead of making something truly amazing new, like not C, maybe more memory safe, more like Redux OS. I mean, finally with Redux OS there is some innovation. Sure, there were some small stuff like Helen OS or something, but often also C. And then also like basing the UI on GTK and Qt, maybe both not the most ideal, or the Xorg server it's basically all. Maybe the last big innovations, well, the current new innovation is Redux OS, which is not the highest performance and stuff, but at least somewhat readable, and Rust somewhat safer, and certainly one of the better examples. Before that, yes, sure, in the 90s there was GNU Hurt, but this is also dedication and attention to detail, right? If you don't put effort into this and hope like the GNU like priority projects of there, let's hope someone else is doing it, then there is no progress for decades in terms of if you don't treat it like a product that eventually should get out of the door. And all the Linux distributions there, sure, it's just another Linux with the same problems of code quality and features. And Marco writes, fun fact, Elon's approach kind of unique, no excessive patents, but moving fast forward to leave competition behind. Blue Origin stole so much from SpaceX, but still can't keep up. So it's an interesting sort. I like the distro's ideas. You mean NixOS? Thanks for joining it. So people, thanks for the interesting session. Thanks for joining. Now this also jumped crazily. By the way, is this freaking stuff still downloading or failed? Yeah, thank you very much. I hope it doesn't start from scratch though. And we are lucky. It apparently allows to. So open source starts with already some download hiccups because. Let's see once more. Can be also the scroller here so small, very hard to see and even harder to click. So actually we have here. Okay, we actually scrolled quite some stuff. So let's try to finish these comments rather fast. Some people joined here this membership. That is amazing. Thanks for that. That is a new thing. NixOS is a big enough improvement. Maybe I should check. I mean, for me, T2 mostly works. Maybe I should actually check NixOS. A couple of times I heard about this. I mean, fun fact, I'm not probably this Armin Hamel or plus minus his name. Fun fact, he in previous times worked at Rock Linux, our Rock Linux contributor. So I actually, I think that is a creator of NixOS. He has actually also some Rock Linux past. T2, P3, new microkernel. And a couple of people write kernels here. Tried super chatting. Google took some money. Super chat missing. What? I guess I join instead. That is thanks for joining. I'm not sure what happened with the super chats. So yeah, I'm highly appreciated there joining that. Done. Thanks for that. I really appreciate it. We will continue to use it. But also, what for me is a summary of all the like Linux kernel people breaking stuff faster than I can keep up fixing it. It's like, yeah, for me this is, it's not really the future. It's just proven that sure, right now it somewhat works in T2, but I need to be really careful. I mean, you click a little bit with the mouse, some chat pop-up stuff, and then you accidentally click on censoring people and stuff. Can be also, it's like, in case you were wondering, what the heck am I? It's like, yeah, it's like accidentally selected here this stuff, and I'm just trying to scroll this, man. How can a scroller, I mean, yeah, I don't know what they, probably Android UI here of a scroller for pixel wide on a mouse-based system. What else do we have here? Also, does it still load? So I hope 3 minutes we are loading something amazing. So yeah, this is mostly this live stream. We are mostly, also in a previous live stream I said I don't want to read all the comments, but just scrolling over the stuff here. Danny, I think the PEM stuff was actually maybe it was missing temp, and maybe it didn't send, maybe the problem was it was not setting a password. You can probably try to use the latest PEM. That might have been a code cleanup issue of, yeah. Anyway. Isn't kind of great to start with? Prep and GHRP, or prep and trap, and before from scratch, let's just say rather send wood all day, build a kernel again. It's like if you kernel never leave boot service, and we haul on top of DXE drivers. Have to build a kernel about 8 years. I heard gotten fat and now takes hours on an AM3. Yeah, building kernels, so on an AM3 it probably will be an hour. This is why you have this AMD 3150X here. JGroup since says yes, 70 Mbits download and 50 upload, and got 35 a month. Not going to complain about it. Yeah, so I only upgraded this. This is even business cable, right? I'm sitting in the office, and for business cable, this is really lousy. They also promised me, so a year ago they confirmed this segment is overbooked and they work on resegmentation. They couldn't give me a time. They only said the time frame is written 2019 infrastructure ISP support. We can't give you a time frame. Look in the forum. In the forum is written 8 to 15 months or so. In the meantime, over 1 year passed. I probably need to call them again and complain about this garbage internet. Anthony writes, internet is still better than we get in the US. Yeah, I know, at least in the countryside, but I also want to get a little bit. I mean, the funny thing is, my company pays for 500 Mbit down, 50 Mbit up. I mean, this number doesn't even look too bad, but I just want, I don't ask for more than 5 freaking Mbit to YouTube, and as you see by 8,700 drop frames, it's like, yeah, also this, it's like, yeah, what do we even use? We use output of, yes, 3.75, can't make this shit up, not even 5, 3.75 Mbit, and at that rate we get 8,000 drop frames, 7.5%, it's like, yeah. It's hilarious, in case you ask me. Probably need to call them again and ask what's about the state of resegmentation here. And yeah, I mean, just 10 Mbit upstream reproducible, like a stable 10 Mbit upstream, I would even pay them extra for. Marco writes, it was exact image stuff for integration paperless office and existing broad proprietary system for taxation. Interesting stuff. Anthony loves Debian, but is with us here become friend Linux GNU, asking other people to do the work for. Also, people think Linus Torvalds does so much amazing stuff, right? In my opinion, from what I've seen, Linus Torvalds, and also, he gets like $500,000 plus pension benefits and other benefits. I think it was over 1.5 million, which is, I rather wish they would spread this a little bit. Linus Torvalds salary, and for that they can't even maintain software scrollback or isolated scrollback salary. I mentioned this in a previous video. I was shocked when I found this. I'm not sure if that is true, but I think it was like 1.5 million. I'm not sure if 10 million is true. I think it was like 500 million base salary plus pension and health insurance and whatnot. I remember something of 1.3 million of additional bonus stuff, which is a little bit, I mean, he's not sitting there and doing, like outstanding research, right? And for that money, they and all the other people can't even maintain a regression-free kernel, which is rather sad. So basically, he's Linus Torvalds, as far as I've seen, mostly managing patches, sorting, applying, or mostly only applying or shouting at people if he doesn't like it. So it's, in my opinion, a little bit pricey patch management, but you should also, fun fact, if you want this, this GPL, its exact image is GPL for a reason, but just ask if you need some commercial linking exception. It's exactly meant theoretically, but even with a GPL, right, if you just have it on site, you can nearly make with it what you want. It's mostly distributing it to customers or something, because fun fact, right, this is GPL stuff. Industrial Light and Magic that once mailed me regarding some Hollywood movie stuff, they can still, with a GPL, they can still take exact image. Maybe even some movies are using exact image, who knows? I mean, they don't need to tell me, right? And you can still integrate this GPL stuff in your workflow and render and blend and compute, and I don't know what they wanted even to do, and never pay out a single cent, right? This is theoretically there's this AGPL of service limiting stuff, but yeah. What else do we have there? And then we take a look at this harmony stuff. Show how you something, essentially linking exceptions, how to disrupt choice. Does the GPL totally killing opportunities quite regularly? Well, you can always, if you see GPL, you could always, if it's already some more permissive licensing, people would just use it without ever contacting us, right? So just doing it something else and then people just use it, it's also not really the solution. Or how do you see that? China is full of fat broadband, but choke shit out of connection across the border. 10 later on Wayland discrimination, more 10 later, and Wayland DE is more dead than alive. What exactly? Been using Wayland since 2015. Issue with it, stable. Xorg was more stable. Well, for me, I mean, it's Wayland right now, just that I don't have hotkeys in OBS anymore. But what else do you have? Wayland give pain, hope, Intel, GPU market, Wayland, something, GNOME, NV next year, wishful switch to Intel hardware. Well, I switch only to AMD though. Why do you want so much Intel hardware as buggy and slow as they are? Software should not get in the way using your hardware. It seems lost away some years ago. Issues Wayland is one reason keeping J to use Windows 10. kernel version is your other OS running? On what kernel version is your version of other OS running? And have you trialed compiling and running the latest one? What do you mean by that? What kernel? Asaf Cohen, you need to clarify. This question doesn't pass. I run the latest versions in our T2 Linux, except the latest version has some regressions as mentioned. Can you suggest some kernel project module in order to start developing in that field? Well, it depends what you want to do. If you're a Linux person, you can start with Linux or BSD or look at smaller. It depends whether you want something smaller to get a better overview like Helen OS or Redux OS, or if you want like Rust. And something. Tried everything, something. Cardi's Wayland is still a work in progress at best, to be honest. All the troubles with Wayland are making switch to macOS because can't wait. Use Hurt as a kernel. Yeah, anyway, so thanks for all the comments. I don't really have a good solution to all of this. Even the comments of like, we couldn't use your exact image because GPL and didn't contact us for relicensing. But even again, if it would, but there you see, if at least it stops people to just use it. But if it's LGPL or BSD, people will just use it and never contact you. So all of this doesn't really solve anything. Again, don't really have a solution, and it's however amazing that you support at least this stuff. And again, after 20 years, I wish more people, as I said in last year's video, Linux killing OS innovation, I wish more people would look over their border there of their use or love of Linux and think more about this. Honestly, sometimes I joke, if Microsoft would release operating systems, if Windows would be released as broken and with regressions as Linux, nobody would be using it, right? Everyone would be laughing. Previously, a decade ago, we were laughing how broken and buggy and crashing and blue screen of deathing Windows was. And now we have more regressions than ever, is my impression in Linux. So sometimes we also need maybe to take one step back and reevaluate where we are here in the open source and free software landscape and see the trees in the forest, or not see the trees with all the forest. But anyway, by the way, so Marco says may allow for separate licensing if no contributors are getting accepted, but it's typically not the people GPL and stop looking. I think our exact image has probably all the files should have this is GPL. Additionally, a commercial license is available. Maybe something like that sort would also be like if you contribute, like if we make a super amazing microkernel stuff or other whatever modern software, GPL, so that other people cannot just run away with it like with BSD, and have a GPL or commercial licensing option from Xcode, and everyone who sends a patch in needs to agree to that this is GPL with copyright holding of Xcode with potential commercial licensing option. This is somewhat sort of, because as you see in your own experience, if it's more permissive than GPL, people will just use it, and with GPL at least there is a chance of people contacting you, which as proven by the comments, people might still not always do. But yeah, that's it for this video. The download failed again. Let's hope this. Yeah, so much to downloading. Harmony OS is the future. Yes, like yeah, open source. I'm already not the most. My expectations are not the highest for this download, and it's like yeah, open source from China. It's like yeah, going through the Great Firewall, and so like yeah, the future, the Chinese open source Harmony OS future already starts. Super amazing with this download. Anyway, let's extract it. Let's see what's in there. Irina asks, what do you think about haiku? So, I mean, haiku is one of the better things, but it's certainly, if you just want some colorful stuff today, it's maybe one of the better choices. But maybe I should investigate how much. I think they write their hybrid kernel, but I think I looked into this. I didn't find that much hybrid kernel. I may even made a dedicated video already that we take a look at haiku OS. One of the better choices, but I would like something. Means theoretically this is still 2000s technology of a clone of previous BOS, which is already 20 years old. I really would like some even more portable, more modern stuff, but from this not as old-fashioned as Unix, one of the better things, to be honest. Marcus says, Robert says he wants to email. As this Biscuit kernel made by Golang, maybe I've not taken a look yet, don't really quite recall. But sure, there are some small experimental things out there, but as much as I try to keep my eyes open, can't look into everything. Marco says a GPL microkernel does make sense, though, because it's not supposed to change much. But yeah, so basically the summary is, comment below, let's brainstorm how can the whole open source free software landscape be made to sustain a living. What are the best options? What innovations can we do? Yeah, looking forward to your comments. Let's continue a little bit. Although I told my girl and also want to see baby on a Sunday, I probably don't continue too long, which this was already too long as per usual, especially when we go through all the comments, which are amazing. Also, shout out to the new members, and you can become a member there and here on Patreon to support all of this. So one short, let's unpack this download here of some percent, like yeah, on the More Life channel, and see what's in this Chinese wow